Hey everyone, it's your girl Trey with the Social Work Come Up. The Social Work Come Up is a podcast for us, by us, talking about all things social work and how to elevate in the profession. So, this series is about the challenges, the barriers, and the successes that people have, Black social workers, in taking the clinical licensure exam. Today's topic is who prepared you? The MSW Readiness Gap. My guest today is Kadisha. Kadisha, could you give a brief introduction of yourself to the audience?
Well, hi, I'm Kadisha. I have been a social worker with the MSW since 2016. I graduated from Baylor University, Thickham, in Waco, Texas, in 2016 with my master's in social work.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I am so gracious to have you join us today. And so the topic is sensitive for many, this clinical licensure exam. We know that there are huge disparities in the first time pass rate between Black social workers and white social workers. On every episode, I've talked about the 2022 release of ASWB pass data, and the data showed that Black social workers who English is not their first language, and older social workers fail the exam at much higher rates than their white counterparts. And so I want to talk a little bit about that with you. So
Okay.
you feel that your program, your MSW program, prepared you for the exam.
I do, in a way. So I attended Baylor, and I'm sure I may have shared with you before that I took the LG portion of it before I graduated and scored very high on that and passed it with my first try. So I came out of the MSW program as a licensed graduate social worker in the state of Texas. And so I think that I was somewhat prepared for the test at the level at which I tested upon completion of the MSW program.
Wow. And do you feel comfortable in sharing what your experience was with the exam and in terms of, have you taken the exam yet? And if so, what was your outcome?
So I have taken the exam 3 times thus
Okay.
far. And each time I have taken the exam, I have failed it with 5 or less points. And
Okay.
so the first time I took the exam was in 2021 was the first time I took it, and I failed it by 3 points. Um, at the time when I took it in DC because that's
Okay.
where I was living at the time, and I did not realize that there was uh, a different protocol based on states as to whether or not I can enact the waiver for taking it before 90 days if you
Hmm.
failed it with 5 or less points. I did not realize that it differed based on the state that you took it in. Of course, District of Columbia not being an actual state, they have their own laws. And so in me taking it and failing it with 3 points, I was like, dang, let me try and see if I could retake it within 90 days. But that was not the case in DC. I think I lost, I kind of felt defeated. And so I was pretty bummed out about it. So after I found out that I couldn't take it again within 90 days, I think I pushed back. And I think I waited a year and a half to take it again. This time I failed by 5 points. And I never even bothered looking into the fact that I could, because I'm lying. Once again, I took it in DC. And when I took it there, I didn't even bother the waiver thing because I knew. Then I moved to Delaware. In 2022, I moved here. Um, and I took it 2024, and I failed again by 5 points. And so I I didn't even bother. I just was so disheartened from failing it the third time that I just put it away. I just kind of stuck it, and then I started the doctoral program, and I just decided to just wait, to build up the courage to take
I
it.
hear you. I hear you, and you will. So, in terms of preparation, do you believe that program your MSW program prepared you?
So and that's what I was referring to when I said I think at the level when I tested in that, I believe at
Mhm.
that time it did. When it comes to the clinical portion of it, I don't think that,
Mhm.
because when we tested it initially, it was the generalist portion. I don't think that it has for what it is that we're doing now.
Gotcha, got you. Did you look into any study programs?
I have. I have
Mhm.
spent so much money on study programs. I have There was one called the Development Center that I did. I
Is
have
that the Therapist Development Center? I'm sorry, the
done that
Therapist
one.
Development Center.
I've done that one.
Okay,
Um, I I have gone really, but I think I did the Therapy Development Center after all the others that I tried.
gotcha.
Um, I have paid easy $1,000 on
Mm,
just prep tests, prep programs for studying for this test.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
lot of money. What do you think is missing?
I definitely think that mentorship is a portion of what I think, and just the supports that one is, it may sound corny, but I think even having conversations like these where it's not
Yes,
something that you are really feeling so guilty about or feeling so bad about failing, that we're actually having open discussions about it
absolutely.
because this is an actual thing. And I do believe that support in the areas of the NASWB, the ASWB, where it's not, support me not because I'm paying you to support me, because all of
Exactly.
these things that we're having to do, we have to pay to participate. It's not a support because I want to see you excel. It's not a support because I really got your back. It's a support because you're paying to be here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think some support, having support, even in the places where, as social workers, we're relying on them. They prepare for everything else. We have an ethics that guides us. We have a this that does this, but the support that we need, I think that part is lacking.
Thank you for raising that. I was talking to another guest, and they mentioned different tracks within social work programs. Did your social work program have a clinical track?
No, it did not. It did not. It was more from a generalist standpoint. It did not have a clinical track in that program.
And a question that I asked my last guest, when you entered the program, at any point, if it was like 2 years, during that 2 year period, did you say to yourself, I want clinical licensure? Did you know then, when you were in the social work program, that you wanted to be licensed?
I did. I think when I went into therapy, when I went into the social work program, I went in with the idea that I wanted to become a therapist. I think I realized then that in order to be a therapist, I needed to be licensed. So yes.
Okay. And, even for myself, taking that exam, it made me question everything about myself. A couple of guests, and when I was doing one of my papers, there was an article, and it talked about thinking like a middle-aged white woman. How do you feel about that?
So I think I am at a deficit, right? I'm an immigrant. That's one. I'm an immigrant. That's one. So I'm Jamaican by birth. I think I have a hard time thinking like a middle-aged white woman. And I definitely think that it's kind of improbable as well as unrealistic for that to be the expectation. And I say this because we can't say think like a middle-aged black woman and let that be the bar that you're being held at. If my experiences, it doesn't reflect that of a white woman. It's really,
Yeah.
it's not actual. Like, how do you think? I don't know a middle-aged white woman. I've never been a middle-aged white woman.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
life, my lens, my experiences have never been as a middle-aged white woman. So I don't think that's really practical to say, this is where the bar is, and this is where I.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I heard you say earlier that mentorship is important. At your or during your program, what did faculty mentorship look like if it existed at all?
Well, interestingly enough, so now that I'm looking at it, I attended one of the top schools in the country, um, in person on campus. It was not online,
Mhm.
and there was none. I there was mentorship was never a part of it. Um, I'm really sitting here thinking back to 2016. Mentorship was not a part of it. Not at all. Not at all. There was no that was not. And I'm wondering now as we're talking is there one now? Do they have a program that actually offers mentorship? Because it was at my when I went to school, it was not.
Mentorship and supervision, they're very important. Did your
Mhm.
school have any or make any provisions for supervision? And the reason why I'm asking that is I was reading an article about a MSW program, and they actually are piloting a program where they help students get their supervision.
I don't recall. I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no. I can't
Gotcha.
recall where supervision was even a topic. So the program that I did at Baylor was a 10-month program. It was an advanced stand-in, and
Ah,
it was only a 10-month program because my bachelor's is in social work as well. And so um, my program was 10 months, and I think time may have also been a factor, right, in what it
yes.
is that we were doing in order to get the MSW. So I don't recall supervision being it. I also think that I may be in a deficit because I'm not from Waco, Texas, right? I was military stationed in the area, and then it was time for me to go. So even if they
Yes.
have those available, did not benefit from it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That makes sense. If you could go back to your school and talk to program directors, what would you tell them that students need?
So I think I think there's a difference. And so I'm saying this, and I'm being mindful with my words because I
Sure.
think that we learn differently, right? And I think
Yeah.
that the type of school you attend, then what you need may be different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Yes.
um in my class at Baylor, there were three African American people. So what it looks like is we were not the majority. And so even in prepping for this class, because we do know that there are biases that are built in, um, it would be hard for me to say what my counterparts would need. One,
Sure.
because their life, their experiences, what it is that they experience is completely different from what myself
Yeah.
experience. I know in many of my classes that I took, I was the only one who looked like me in my class. Okay, and so it would vary as to what the need was.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I have enough information as to say what they would need. What
What would
I,
you have needed? Yes.
you know, what
I
I
like the way
need,
you turned it around.
it would be one, I think I could have benefited from having support in the classes with people who look like me. That's one. Because I
Yeah.
do think that that makes a difference. Um, but I definitely think having the support or even having conversations about what to expect, what a clinical track, as we talked about,
Yeah.
prepping throughout the 10 months, or even having it ongoing until you prep for the test, until you have taken the clinical test. I think that having those as an extension would definitely be beneficial.
Thank you. And tell me this. And so in 2022, the ASWB, for the first time, released pass rate data. And I may be a little off with my number, but I know it's at least 45. So at least 45% of Black social workers passed on the first time. 45% of Black social workers compared to 86% of white social workers.
Wow.
Is that surprising?
That's mind blowing.
Yes.
45% versus
86.
86%.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it, there's a region, and so the South, and this is all from data that I pulled from the ASWB website. So the South Atlantic region has the lowest pass rate overall. And so, what is it about the South Atlantic region?
Interesting. Black.
Yeah, and we're in that region. Yes, that region is heavily, yeah, yeah, heavily. And so, yes,
The experiences. Because the reality is that regardless of what is on the test, we test using our experiences. A couple months ago, one of the things I did was sign up for Dawn Apgar's study that she
oh,
offered
yes,
at Del State. And one of the things that she said was to think about the test as the basic, wherein you're looking at everything from the code of ethics, everything is
hmm,
based on it's cut and dry. Any social worker would do this.
yes,
And I struggled with that because any social worker, I understand what bookwork says. I understand that. And that's what I think what she was saying is to look at it from the textbook perspective, right?
yes,
But we don't live in the textbook. And I think a lot of the stuff when you ask me on a question, what would you do first? What I'm doing first is depending on what the child needs, right? And
yes,
I
yes,
understand that the textbook may say this, but the reality of what I'm dealing with would dictate how I'm moving, you know?
exactly,
And so
exactly.
that becomes a struggle. And so I can definitely understand as to why the lower southern portion would definitely test different than someone that lives in Ohio or someone that lives in Utah. I can
Yes,
definitely understand where the differences would come in.
absolutely. And you said reality. And so reality is important to me. I consider myself a fairly good social worker. And when I took the exam, I'm going to be transparent. I was in my 40s. And so here I am, a Black woman in my 40s. And so I'm fitting into that demographic that doesn't pass it, right? And when I looked at the questions, I laughed to myself because I've been doing this thing for a long time. And I'm like, that is not how I would have handled that. But I studied to figure out the rationale
Hmm.
of, what the right answers are. But in all honesty, that wasn't the way that I answered was not my reality.
And so, Tracy, this is where it gets to me, because okay, so now I'm having to code switch in a whole different way, right? So now I
Yes.
have to show up as someone else just to be able to pass this test. And I think that oftentimes it tags into so many other things that life operates in, and in the society that we operate as, is that what are the standards? Because it's never that black social workers are the standard, right? We're not looking at it from the perspective of a black middle age
Mm-mm.
social
No,
worker. That's not
no.
what we're looking at it as. And so it's just really, and it's interesting that you said it, because I do now, I'm realizing that when I took my test, I was also on the in the my I wasn't in my 20s,
Yes.
I wasn't in my 30s. And so
Yes.
it makes a difference as to how we even perceive, this test.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the thought process of a 20-year-old, 20 or 20, we'll say 25-year-old is very different than a 45-year-old.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Definitely.
Wow. Well, we're having such robust discussion, and we're coming to the end of this segment. But I want to ask you a question that I've been asking all of my guests. So, if there was one piece of advice or a nugget that you could give to someone who has taken the exam multiple times and not passed it, and now they're feeling ambivalent about it, what would you say to them?
So I think I would say what I'm telling myself is, don't give up. Don't
Yeah.
give up. Um I have made it my quest that this will not defeat me. Okay. And so my advice would be that you are not defined by this test doesn't define you. This test have very little to do with the awesomeness in you, in who you are, and the amazing way that you're impacting the world. And so continue to trudge forward, continue to trek forward, and this too shall pass.
I love that. I love that. I had a takeaway. I wrote down preparation gaps are institutional and not personal deficits. And so that aligned right what you said. And so I appreciate that positive takeaway. I appreciate your time today. And this topic is so important. I may bring you back for, an additional panel discussion later on down in the series.
I would love that. Thank you for having me. Thank you, thank you. And continue doing what you're doing, Tracy, opening the doors to have these conversations, because it does matter.
Thank you so much. Take care.
All right, you too.